What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another G80 M3 video. This is my 2023 British Racing Green Individual G80 M3 Competition X Drive that I just recently got. So this is going to be one of the first videos of having this new car here. And today we're going to focus on carbon ceramic brake pads. So compliments of the guys over at Keys Motorsports. They've been a huge supporter of the channel, so definitely go check them out, keysmotorsports.com. They have went ahead and sent me some new brake pads because if you guys aren't aware, the G80 has some really squeaky brakes and they produce a ton of brake dust, which I'll show you here in a minute on the Volt TEs. And so I'm actually gonna split this video basically up into two because we're gonna do the front install separate video, and then today we're actually gonna do the rear install on the pads on the G80. So this is EBC's red stuff. We have matching front and rear. It does have a list here of what EBC does have in terms of different colors and what they're great for. And so these are the reds. So these are actually really great for fast street, low dust, and premium cars and sedans, not for race use. So if you are doing any track days and things like that, I would recommend going with the blue stuff because it's more street and track oriented. And there's even some pure track pads down here as well. So we're going with the red stuff because this is going to be a daily driven car. I'm not gonna, be on the track. I'm just gonna do spirited driving around town and maybe some back roads here and there. So the red stuff is gonna be perfect. And from all of the reading that I've done, the red stuff is really great. Should be zero noise and very minimal dust. So we're gonna go ahead and start on the rear today. And yeah, so let's get to it. I'll show you guys what these look like.
All right, so here's everything that comes in the package. Again, we're gonna start on the rears for today. As you guys can see, I've driven the car in the rain a couple times and the brake dust is just a lot. I mean, I had the same encounter on my blue G80 M3, and so I never got around to doing ceramic pads on that car, but this is gonna be one of the first mods on the BRG. So this is what it looks like. Again, these are the EBC red stuff. So these are carbon ceramic. Everything that comes in the package, you'll see right here. And so I'm gonna take you guys through the install process, but what we need to do first is jack the car up in the air and take off this rear wheel. All right, so now that we've got the car up in the air, we can actually see what we're doing in here. And so I will mention that since these cars do have an electronic emergency brake here, what we need to do is one of two things. We can either do it the manual way, which is what I'm going to show you how to do, which kind of involves removing the actual mechanism here, the actual brake mechanics back here. Or the other option is if you have Beamer Link or some sort of service device reader code thing that you can connect to the car and actually put it in service mode, you can actually do it electronically and put the car into a service mode and release the parking brake that way. But I'm going to show you the harder way, which is a little bit more time consuming but still pretty easy. And all we really need to do is remove the actual electronics back here from the bracket and basically unplug it. And so that will allow us to actually compress and push the actual caliper back into place in order for us to put the caliper back on. So that's kind of the process. The other thing is we do have a couple screws we need to remove. So you'll see this one here. This is a 13 mil. So there's one here on top and one on the very bottom down here. And so we'll unscrew those in order to release the actual caliper. Okay, so in order to remove this 13 millimeter, you also need a 17 millimeter open end wrench in order to hold it in place, because what's going to happen is when you turn this, it'll actually spin here. So we need to hold it in place like so, and then remove. It's not on super tight. So you want to do that and simultaneously do the bottom one. If you take out the top one, then the caliper will actually swing out. So you need to do both at the same time. one's a little harder to see. All right, so when you remove that screw, this is what it looks like there on the bottom. So before I take out the top one, what I'm going to do is look at some of these lines. So you'll have a brake wear sensor that comes down here through the bottom on one of these here. Might be on the other side. Additionally, there's a couple lines here that we need to move kind of just out of the way. So what I'm gonna do is basically pull this one out. I'll show you that here in a second. Just so we have some more room here. All right, so basically all I did was I pulled this one out of its spot down here in the bracket, and then go ahead and remove the top screw here. All right, so now that we've got that bottom one off, we can go ahead and work on this top one. So I'm pretty sure that since this is the driver's side, there is no brake wear sensor, but there is one on the passenger side. So just be mindful of that. It's kind of a weird position here. All right, so you can see it kind of drops. So there's the other screw there. And so you'll see that I got my box here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this out and rest it here because you don't wanna put a bunch of tension on the brake lines. So we're just gonna rest it on there like so for a minute. And so the electronic brake here is, the motor is what's preventing us from pushing this all the way back in. So that's why we have to do it the manual way. If we're not doing it the other way, it kind of makes this whole process a little bit longer because we're doing it the manual way by having to remove the motor back here. But that's what I'm gonna do, and hopefully this will be helpful for you guys who aren't willing to spend a bunch of money on having some tool or Beamer Link or something like that. Beamer Link's not expensive, but I just figured I'd show you the manual way. But basically, now that we have this free, there are a couple Allen screws here on the back side, which I will show you here in a moment. But basically, we need to remove those two Allens in order to remove the motor here. So if you look closely, you'll see there's an Allen screw right here where my finger is, one there and one on the opposite side, which you can't see. It's down here, right there. So one there, and so we're gonna go ahead and remove that. I believe that's a 5mm Allen. So we will remove that and then pull this whole motor out of the spline. All right, so it is a 5mm Allen. So I'm gonna go ahead and unscrew this. It's probably on here super tight. So we'll see if I can get this by hand. All right, so I'm doing this a little bit ghetto with a bunch of extensions, but whatever works. It is on there pretty tight, so I think you're gonna be able to do it by hand. All right, so once you break it up free with your impact, you can go back and do it manually. But so this is the 5mm Allen, one on each side. And again, this process isn't hard, it's just annoying to have to do it this way. So if you have Beamer Link or some other way of doing this, then more power to you. But if you don't, this is why I'm showing you. Okay, so this is out. And now we're able to just pull up on the motor itself. Let's see if the bracket comes out of the way. We should be able to pull up on the motor. You'll see that there's a spline inside of here. And so that's what sits down in there. So I'm gonna put this up here, up out of the way, just so we don't dangle it. And so that gives us access to push the actual piston back in. So if you have, you know, a caliper tool, that would really come in handy. If you don't, you can do it plenty of other ways as well. And in order to make sure we have the caliper pushed all the way in, what we need to do is turn this clockwise, turn the spline clockwise. So take a T45, it'll fit right inside of there, and you should be able to turn it by hand until it stops. So just like that, now it's stopped. And so that allows us to now push the caliper, the piston all the way back in. So if you need to, go rent a caliper tool. This is from O'Reilly's Auto Parts, or AutoZone also carries these, super easy to use. I'll show you how to do that real quick. So basically what we're gonna do here is push the caliper back in. So to turn this way, we need to push this back into the caliper. So what you want to do is get the right size bolts here, the right size tools here in order to do this. And what we're going to do is basically construct it like so. And then we're going to turn this by hand until it gets tight. Problem with this is there's not a ton of room to work. Make sure you're on everything. There we go. And so basically you can see what I did there. So this is how the tool works. So it's as tight as it'll go, so we know the piston is all the way back in there. So we know that it's tight, just like so. The piston's all the way pushed back in, but you'll see after I unscrew this what it looks like now. So caliper piston is all the way back inside of there, and we are ready to go ahead and put our pads on now. Okay, so once you've got your piston compressed with your tool, then the hard part's pretty much over. So at this point we can go ahead and remove the pads, which is the easier part. So I just need to grab it, pull it out of the little spring. So there's one, plenty of life left obviously because it's got 3,000 miles on it. So that's the front one, and the back one, same thing, just pull straight up and out. So there's the back one. So you'll see the difference here of how these look, front versus back. The back one has this larger piece and the front one has this kind of little cutout. So that's how they look. Plenty of life left on those. So now what we need to do is move over to the new pads. Make sure you grab one of each of the new ones. We're gonna put some grease on here as well, just to make sure everything is nice and smooth and we don't have any weird, you know, noises or anything like that. But here's a comparison. So here's a comparison of the stock ones versus the new pads here from EBC, the carbon ceramic pads. All right, so now we need to prepare the new pads. And so here is one of the pads here, and they give you these little metal plates that go on them as well. So we also need to use some synthetic caliper grease. So I've got this from O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and we're just going to basically put some of that grease on here, then put this on top, just like so, and then we're gonna put some on this side as well. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so at this point I've gone ahead and reinstalled the motor exactly the same way that I had it, as well as the bracket. Went ahead and tightened the 5mm Allen screws. And so at this point, the caliper's already pushed back in, the motor's back on. This is kind of the hardest part, is dealing with that. And like I said, now we can move on to the actual pads. So I went ahead and put some grease down underneath the black piece here. And now I'm going to take some of that same grease and wipe it here on this front side, as well as these little arms right here. And then we can go ahead and reinstall them back into the clip. Take my rear brake here. It's gonna go on like this. Like this. So I wanna make sure that I am covering all of this with some grease. We don't want to have any noise. The whole purpose of doing this is to not have noise. So make sure this whole backside is basically covered here. So once the arms are done here as well, this liberal amount, just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this on the backside here. Also do it here, just in case. Try not to get any on the actual pad part here when you're doing this, because this can get a little bit messy. Go. Just make sure it's in there. It's a little hard to see, I know, but you have to trust that I got it in there. And we're going to do the same thing with the front pad. This might be a little excessive. Not sure what all the contact points are, but better safe than sorry. Okay, so this is going to go on just like so. Slip this in. There we go, just like that. And now we are ready to go ahead and reinstall the actual caliper at this point. So, same thing, reverse order. So we're gonna take our caliper here, reposition this, and since we compressed the piston, it should fit right on, no problem, just like so. And then we can go ahead and reinstall by hand first our 13mm screws. Kind of need to hold it in place. Alright, so that one's spinning on the top, so we're good there. And then we can go ahead and do it on the bottom. Alright, so at this point we've got everything back into place, and all I need to do now is torque these bolts down. So in the rear it's going to be 35 Newton meters for this one, and the lower one down here. Additionally, I do want to mention that I went ahead and put this little wire back into the bracket down there, so everything else is all buttoned up. Now I'm starting on the passenger rear. Exactly the same process. The only difference here is this side has a brake wear sensor right here. All we need to do is pull this straight out. Other than that, the process is exactly the same as the driver's side. So I will finish this and come back to you guys when I'm done.
All right, guys, so the rear is finally finished. No issues. Again, the only difference with the other side is the fact that it does have that brake wear sensor, and all you need to do is pull it out. And I will say you just need to be careful when you pull it out, because those are generally tend to break, at least in the previous model M3s that I've dealt with, they break pretty easily. So you just need to be very careful pulling it out and then swapping it back into the new pad. So other than that, pretty straightforward install process. So I'm gonna end this video here because I'm gonna break this into two. So if you need a DIY for the rears, this is for that video. I'm gonna have another video here explaining how to do the fronts. So stay tuned for that one. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, as usual, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, we will see you guys on the next video. Take care. Thanks for watching. See you later.